Hi everybody, just wanted to pop in and give you a quick recording on some things that might help with Tech Project 2. Less so to help, but more so to show you a light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. This project is based on some simple reading that you do in chapters 3 and 4 about understanding layers and making selections. Just know that those are really basic concepts just to understand that when you hide parts of a layer, it's going to show what's underneath that layer, right? So if we hide the background of the car layer, it's going to show the garage layer behind it. That's not to say that that's the best way to go about every project. And some of you, like in Slack, for example, have talked about using the eraser tool and things. And that's fine for this because you're just learning how like the eraser tool work or how the backgrounds and how layers work. But there are much better, more efficient ways to do it when you get into like real workflows. So baby steps, we're just working our way through some simple concepts there. So the real thing to understand is just how adjustments and some of the photo corrections that you might do work, how layers work, how showing and hiding parts of a layer work. But just so you see kind of where we're headed with this, once we get into like chapter 6, for example, talking about masks, is that if we use a layer mask for this, it's going to give us a lot more flexibility on what we do. Just as a quick sample, I'm going to switch to the eraser tool right now, and I'm just going to roughly erase out some of the edges around this car, and I'm not doing a great job. If you look, I've obviously chopped off a bumpy section of the hood, and I missed parts and things like that. And I can't really get that back unless I hit undo. So that's what we call a destructive edit. So after this project, when we get a little further along, I'll just undo that. We want to work totally non-destructively, and that would be where we start using things like layer masks. Now, again, you haven't learned about this yet, so unless you've got previous Photoshop experience, I'm not faulting you, and you won't get marked off for not using it on this project. But take a look. There's 17 different ways to do this in Photoshop. This is just one of them that's relatively recent and kind of quick and easy. But if you click on a layer that you want to do this to, for example, I'm on the car layer right now, and don't follow this for your assignment. I haven't named my layers properly or anything. But let's go over here and look in the quick actions of the properties panel. If you don't have properties, then click on window and just check properties. And in the properties, if you have a regular pixel-based layer, you'll see some quick actions here. This is remove background or select subject. I'm just going to go straight to remove background, which is what we want to do, right? Photoshop will think for a second. And ta-da, the background is removed. Now it's not perfect. If we look at some of these areas, they're less than perfect. But that's okay, because what we have now is not pixels that were deleted destructively with the eraser tool. We have pixels that are just masked. They're hidden under a mask. And what that mask looks like is this. If I'll click on that, it shows me a black and white preview of what that mask is. So anything that's black in our mask is hidden. Any pixels that are white are shown. And the interesting thing is that anything that is gray is partially hidden and partially shown. So we'll play with that concept to fix things a little bit and make this an even more precise and accurate selection. So that quick button just, it took out the car from the background, but it didn't do a really clean job of it. So let's get back into the regular view here and show you. Again, we have a layer mask, and black pixels on our mask will hide things and white pixels will show things. So rather than using the eraser tool, we can actually use the brush tool. So I'm going to switch over to the paintbrush tool here and just demonstrate. I have black selected right now. See, it's on black. And if I paint with black, it causes a problem. It literally paints black pixels over my image because I'm still on the car layer. So just when you're doing this, make sure you're looking at the layers panel. Right there is that thumbnail. Over on the right hand side over here is my layer panel. And the icon for the layer itself is selected. Let me hit undo, Control Z. And instead click on the mask. Now I'm on the mask, and if I paint with black, sorry, my brush switched. I'm painting with white right now, so white is going to show things. Let's undo that. Switch to black. We can just press this little arrow here and switch that, or X on the keyboard to toggle that. And if I paint with black, it's going to hide. It's not erasing, it's just masking, it's just hiding. So I can switch back and forth with the X key from black to white really quickly here. I'm on white right now, and if I want to clean up that little selection edge right there, I might just paint over that. And I did too much. That's no big deal. I press X, toggle that to black, probably go with a little smaller paintbrush. and come in here, and I can just paint out that fuzzy edge there and get a nice clean selection. And so you'll get into lots more techniques. I'm just showing you a really quick and dirty version of the fact that there's other ways to do things in here. But like this tire, I could come in and clean this tire up. And so there's tools to automate things like that select background or remove background. They're not perfect. They're kind of AI based, some of them, and so your results will vary. They may require some cleanup. But the nice thing is that when you're working with layer masks, you can do that cleanup without having to just hit undo. If I mess up like that, I've gone too far, I just switch X on the keyboard or change to white over here on the color picker, and I can just paint that back in, and I'm painting the mask. I'm not painting the pixels themselves. Switch back to black, paint that out, and there we go. Okay, so let me show you one other thing here, because if you look, we've got a garage in the background, obviously, but in the car windows, there's like a sunset. That doesn't quite work. Also, there's some weird stuff up here on top. So again, just a black brush. We'll just paint out on our mask right there. I'm not being very precise because I want to hurry, but you get the idea. All right, now these windows. Let's mess around with this a little bit. We want it to look like there's glass in these windows, so we can't just totally erase it because then it would look like there's no glass in the windows, right? So we're going to cheat a little tiny bit. Not cheat, we're just going to do it better. We're going to get a tool, selection tool that you may have covered this week, polygonal lasso tool. It lets us make selections by kind of connecting the dots. Every time I click with my mouse, it's just adding another line segment there. We can make whatever kind of shape we want. What I want to do is make a shape that matches this window here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click like this, match that window. And so having made this selection, it means that whatever I do, it's only going to affect the area inside of that selection. So I'll go back to my brush tool with the B key. I'll switch my color from black to gray. Okay, now black is going to hide pixels completely, white is going to show them completely. So anywhere in between those two is going to either show or hide those pixels with varying degrees of intensity. So I want this window, because there's just one layer of glass right there, to be mostly hidden, but have a little bit of it shown through. So I'm just going to kind of pick a gray right about here, maybe a quarter, third of the way up. Hit OK. And I can make this bigger. I don't have to be precise at all because I've already got the selection edges, those marching ants going around. I'll just paint over that. Okay. Let's hit Control D to deselect that selection. Then I'll go back to my lasso tool, my polygonal lasso tool, and let's click right here. Make a little mark. And again, I'm not being really precise because I want to just get through this, but now if I go back to my brush tool, I can do the same thing and paint over that. But the difference is that now there's glass in one window pane and there's glass in the back window pane as well. And so that doesn't look right to have this really solid glass there in the foreground, and then up at the top half of it, it's kind of gone. So we'll undo that. And this time let's go into, what am I talking about here? Oh, the color. This time we'll just pick a much lighter color of gray. And then paint in there. Hit deselect. And it looks like we've got, two different densities of glass. We've got one panel here or one panel here in the middle, two panels overlapping over here in the back. And we can go through the rest of these windows and do the same thing. I'm not going to do it because I think you get the idea. But there are a million ways to do all this kind of stuff. But you want to just get used to having an eye for detail, zoom in on things, check close, and look forward to the fact that there are simpler, faster ways to do things and less destructive ways to do things, meaning ways that you can make edits or adjustments without having to just undo as your only safety net for errors or changes or creative things that you want to do. Now, lastly, I want to show you adjustments. I was talking in the assignment about adjusting the layers to make it look like the car is more better matched into the scene. And so looking at this garage, we see that there's like indoor yellowish kind of a garage lighting here in the background. We've got that red strip of paint on the wall that's also going to be reflecting some light. And so if we were to zoom in on this concrete right here, if you look at that, it's pretty yellowish, right? It's kind of, brownish, yellowish. If we zoom out again, and let's zoom in down here on this concrete, this is very, very blue in comparison, right? Probably there's some outdoor lighting shining into this garage, mixing with the indoor lighting as well, and so we're getting a mix of colors there. Now this can be kind of complicated. I'm not expecting you guys to do like pro level work just yet, but we're getting there, and so learning these little things will help. When we're adjusting colors and adjusting tones and things like that, what we're going to use is something called the adjustment layer. All right, so you guys learned about some adjustment layers already, but there's lots of ways to do these. Don't get hung up on specifically how I'm doing it right now, just the fact that an adjustment layer is what you want to use. I'm going to go down here to the bottom of my layers panel. There's this little circle. It's half black and half white, like an Oreo that you're dunking. Click on that. And I'm going to go to, for example, let's just do levels for now. Okay. Now this adjustment layer has a properties panel. We'll drag that out so we can just see what's going on. The properties panel here just shows us everything we can do with that particular adjustment. So these settings will be different for whatever adjustment layer you choose. Levels, curves, color adjustments, and whatnot. And if we drag these sliders, you'll see that it's brightening everything up, or darkening everything down, or whatever else we want to do with it. We can go in and do the same thing to individual colors, for example. I'm not going to bother with that just yet, but just to show you how to specifically apply an adjustment to certain areas, that's the thing I want to show you. Again, I'm not expecting like a high degree of all this complicated stuff if you're new to Photoshop and on your tech project too. I'm just showing you so you know, like, here's what's coming. You'll get there. All right, so let's say I'm just going to make a really obvious, dramatic adjustment here to brighten things up way, 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 way too much, just so that we can see where I'm going to apply this to just specific areas. Brighten to the garage or brighten the car, but let's say we just want to brighten the car. What we want to do is it's called clipping. We want to clip this adjustment to the layer below it. Because right now, if I turn that visibility on and off, you see it's applying to everything. We could have 100 layers underneath that, and it's going to apply to all of them. If I just want it to apply to the car layer and nothing else, then I just look for this little icon right here. At the bottom of the layers panel, shows a square with a down arrow with a line through it. I'm not sure what that icon exactly means, but the tooltip shows you that it affects all layers below. That's not what we want, so click that. And now the little arrow pointing down says it's only going to apply to the layer directly below. And you see that arrow over here as well. It indents that adjustment layer in the layers panel. And it gives us a little arrow pointing down. It says only apply to the car. So now if we turn that on and off, you can see that it's only applying to the car, not the garage. Because if we want to change the car to match the garage, then changing the garage with the car is never going to get us there, because they're always kind of changing with each other. So you need to apply the adjustment, have it clipped to just the car layer. But that's just kind of a general, like, let's make it apply to a whole layer at once. We want to make it apply to just parts of a layer. Then we do the same thing we did on this car layer where we masked out the background. Notice that when you add any adjustment layer, it comes in with this little white rectangle in the layers panel. So on that white rectangle, I'm going to make sure that I'm clicked on it. It should be by default. When I click on that, it's a layer mask, just like before. So if I were to grab the brush tool here, and let's go back to black and white, let's switch that to black, and if I paint on that adjustment layer with black, then it's going to mask the adjustment. Okay, so let's show what that looks like. There's where I painted, just some scribbles, and on my adjustment layer, it's going to mask out that adjustment from happening. We'll undo that. What I want to do instead, though, is be a little bit more precise about this, because the cool thing about layer masks is that you can use nearly all of the regular Photoshop tools on them. So I'm going to grab the gradient tool here, and my gradient right now is set to black to white. Black's going to conceal, white's going to reveal. If I want to, say, brighten up just the front of the car, then I could click towards the back and drag towards the front and let go. And now on my adjustment layer, it looks like this. Black is concealing, white is showing that adjustment, and the gray goes from black to white and kind of a transition in between, which is going to give us, oops, that's not what I wanted to click. Hang on. There we go. So now it's only brightening up the parts where the mask is white, which is only on the front of the car right there. Okay. Not what you're doing in this particular assignment. You're going to want to do like some color adjustments and things probably, but hopefully that shows you how you can apply an adjustment to specific portions of an image. Okay. So that's it for now. I just wanted to show you. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Let me know if that was useful. I'll try to record some of these as we go along, usually towards the end of a due date period, because I want you guys to work on things and figure them out through some trial and error and testing things out and looking things up and reading in the books and asking in the help channel. But I'll usually show kind of a solution like this at the end. Now, granted, again, if you've watched all this way through, you already know, but this is not how you should do this particular assignment. Like, obviously you're not turning the front of the car white. So don't do what I did here. Follow the instructions for the assignment, but know that there's so many more things that you can do than what you've started.